3 spine-chilling true horror stories revealed. Unexplainable terrors that haunted the cursed. In the suburbs of Oakwood Heights, where the grass glistened with morning dew and every house boasted a perfect picket fence, something sinister lurked beneath the surface. Laura, a 35-year-old single mother, could feel it in her bones, pulsating gnawingly as she pushed her 2 children on the swings. What should have been playful giggles echoed unsettlingly. Instead, it felt like a countdown, a reminder that something was off, very off. Her neighbor, Mr. Thompson, the retired police officer whose once kind presence had been a source of comfort, now cast shadows over her son's laughter with his piercing glare from the porch. As the sun dipped below the horizon that evening, she heard her kids whispering nervously in the hallway. The shadows her 8-year-old murmured, giggling nervously about mysterious figures darting past their window at night. Laura froze, clutching her chair, an instinctual fear crawling up her spine. She peeked outside, heart racing, but the stillness was deafening. The neighborhood stayed too quiet, too perfect. Then she saw it, Mr. Thompson's eyes, watching. Were they vulnerable or predatory? Every day, an invisible tension coiled tighter around their once friendly street, wrapping around Laura's heart like a vice. The huddled whispers of her neighbors grew louder in her imagination, conversations that vanished as soon as she approached. Her gut twisted. A premonition whispered that she was on the verge of unraveling something too chilling to confront. Late that night, while rummaging through boxes in the attic, Laura unearthed a collection of yellowing newspaper clippings. The headlines screamed for attention. Disappearance on Oakwood. Local boy vanishes without a trace. 5th resident missing. No leads, no answers. Names from her childhood flitted through her mind, ghosts lost to the whispers of time. Eyes wide, she realized the chilling truth trapped in her skull. Mr. Thompson wasn't the friendly neighbor you could count on. He had been patrolling, but for whom? Laura's hands trembled, nausea gripping her as the memories clashed with the reality of their eerie neighborhood. She glanced out the window. Mr. Thompson was still there, a loitering specter, a smile fading into something darker. Dread bled into every corner of her being, gripping her throat like a choking vine. When she tried to reach out to the police, their dismissive gestures swept away her fears like cobwebs in the wind. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With every nightly confrontation, that fatherly facade cracked, revealing a monster she had never dared to see. The darkness enveloping Oakwood tightened its grip around her, while whispers turned to shouts echoing in her mind, warning her to get her children out before it was too late. It was almost comedic how the normalcy of their lives had decayed, yet she could not laugh. The closer she drew to the truth, the more tangled in horror she felt, unable to discern friend from foe. In a chilling silence, she understood the stakes. Unraveling this terrifying mystery could cost her everything. Was her home a sanctuary, or a prison slowly closing in? As she took a deep breath, preparing to confront the mystery of Mr. Thompson, a horrific thought invaded her mind. What if the danger had been stalking them from the very beginning? What if Oakwood Heights was nothing but a facade hiding nightmares of its very own? Would she recognize it before it consumed her family? The clock struck midnight, resonating through the empty house like a solemn warning. Laura's hands shook as she huddled next to her kids, breathing quietly to avoid waking them. Their innocent faces were serene, yet her heart pounded with dread. The darkness outside seemed alive, fingers of night creeping closer. She had to know the truth about Mr. Thompson. Digging deep into her soul, she summoned her courage and reached for her phone. She needed someone to believe her, to help her unravel the horror gripping Oakwood Heights. But as she dialed the number, an unfamiliar sound echoed through the house. A slow, deliberate scratching at the front door. Her stomach twisted, fear spreading like wildfire through her veins. She hung up, heart racing as she crept towards the door. Every step crouched in trepidation. "Laura," a voice called from the dark, but it wasn't her childreness. It was low, velvety, dripping with an ominous familiarity. "Would you like to see the truth?" She leaped back, recognizing the voice. Mr. Thompson. Hadn't he been silently watching from the porch? She glanced back at her children, their brows furrowed, but they remained blissfully unaware. "Leave us alone," she shouted, her voice thin and fragile in the suffocating air. A soft chuckle licked the edges of her ear, playful yet sinister. "It's not just me you have to worry about, dear." The scratching continued, relentless, as if clawing at something desperate to get in. Laura's mind raced to the clippings she had uncovered. The missing children. Were they tied to him? Panic surged within her, pushing her feet into motion. She darted back to the attic, fueled by a primal instinct to protect her kids. She rifled through box after box, searching for answers and a way out, desperate to find something. Anything that would prove her fears weren't just shadows in her mind from the attic window. She had a view of the entire street, of every shadow in its sinister play. Her pulse quickened as her eyes fell on a dark shape moving. Not only Mr. Thompson but figures, more of them creeping through the darkness. Familiar faces, youthful and bright, but twisted with malice. Were they watching her? The chill swept through her like icy fingers, wrapping around her throat. "Laura," the voice called, now echoing from different directions. "We are waiting." She gripped the edge of the window frame, adrenaline soaring, her heart pounding like a drum. The implications of their words slithered into her thoughts. Were the missing kids trapped, somehow turned to puppets of horror? Before she could shake off this dreadful thought, a shadow shifted in the corner of her vision. The very shadows that her son had been whispering about. Each breath grew shallower as the realization weighed on her. She couldn't just stand idle. They were all getting too close. She had to make a choice. Should she fight this nightmare head-on, or flee, dragging her children from a home that might never be safe again? The scratching turned into a fierce banging now, splintering the stillness of the night. Suddenly, the front door burst open, and darkness flooded in. "Mom!" Her son screamed, eyes wide with fear. The familiar voice, twisted with the strain of terror, pulled Laura from her trance. She whirled around, tears blurring her vision and terror freezing her body. What stood before them was no longer just shadows but something more, something hungry. "Run!" she screamed, a wild fire igniting within her. But as she gathered her children in her arms, the echo of their laughter twisted through the noise, fading into a void. The final breath of night enveloped them, the darkness closing in faster than she could escape. What now? Was there hope? As they stood together in the overwhelming shadows, the question loomed. How far would she go to save her children from the horrors of Oakwood Heights? The darkness pulsed around them, a suffocating blanket, and Laura felt her heart racing, matching the chaos of the storm brewing outside. Her grip tightened around her kids, their small bodies shaking against her. "Mom, what is that?" Her daughter whimpered, eyes darting toward the door, where the shadows still writhed. "It's okay, sweetie," Laura whispered, though she could barely convince herself. Every instinct screamed to flee, but where could they run? The night had wrapped around their home like a vice. "Mom, please." Her son's voice trembled, pulling her back to the now. "I want to go home. I don't like the dark." The shadows deepened. They weren't just dark, they were alive, breathing, 1,000 eyes stalking them. Each clawing sound at the door turned into a chorus, a symphony of terror. "Don't look away," she hissed, clutching her children tighter. "Just keep your eyes on me." Then, from the depths of that black void, a chilling lullaby began to rise. The children's laughter intermingled with it, twisted and mocking. It spiraled like smoke, coiling inside her mind, dragging her deeper into despair. She could almost see them, little hands reaching through the haze, faces she recognized, though distorted and shattered, begging for release. Suddenly, a hurried knock came again, this time from the attic. The air shifted, like someone had stepped into another realm, bringing a chill that cut to the bone. Laura. The velvety voice spilled over her like poison. We want to play. Laura staggered, the weight of the voice bearing down on her. Her pulse hammered in her ears. Stay here, she commanded, glancing back at her children. Lock your eyes on me. With an unexpected burst of adrenaline, she launched toward the attic door, every instinct screaming to not look back. Mom! Her daughter's voice sliced through the darkness. Stay together. Don't move. Each step felt like wading through quicksand. The attic was a sanctuary turned prison, and as she reached the door, the shadows pressed in like teeth, snapping at her heels. Inside, her heart sank upon seeing the boxes she rattled through just moments ago. They were not just filled with her memories but with the remnants of vanished lives. Old toys, clothes, pictures, every detail saturated with stories of those who had disappeared. Her hands grazed over a delicate porcelain doll. Its face cracked but eyes unbroken. Felt alive. Laura came a whisper, impossibly soft yet rolling through her like thunder. We're waiting. She spun, breath quickening, the window offering no solace as the faces outside warped with hunger. She had to do something. An idea sparked within her. If this nightmare was the result of Mr. Thompson's influence, maybe getting back to his house would provide answers or a way to free those souls trapped within. Kids, we have to go. She turned, heart full of urgency as she reached for the door when a small hand appeared, reaching around the corner. It was her daughter, stepping into the light, watching, transfixed. No, get back, Laura shouted, panic shooting through her as she lunged forward. All she could hear was that haunting laughter returning, and shadows flickered like flames. Mommy! A monstrous grin spread across her daughter's face, twisted like those in the street. The child she knew was engulfed by the dark presence within. Before Laura could breathe, darkness surged, swelling like an ocean wave, threatening to swallow her whole. Just as they were about to be engulfed, a shrill cry pierced through the chaos. Mom! Run! Without thinking, Laura caught her daughter's wrist, stunned for a breath that lasted a lifetime. What would she sacrifice to save her children from this abyss? The truth would demand its toll. What other horrors lay ahead, waiting just beyond that door? As the shadows tightened their grip, one question rang in her mind. Was the cost of freedom higher than she could imagine? The shadows constricted around them, the darkness a tangible force. Laura's heart raced as she pulled her daughter back into the attic, each breath a battle against the suffocating dread. The attic door slammed behind them, a heavy door against an even heavier reality. Mommy, it hurts, her daughter murmured, voice cracking under the weight of despair. The madness in her eyes flickered, struggling against the encroaching darkness. Don't look, don't listen, Laura shouted, though her own voice trembled. She turned to her son, who stood wide-eyed, paralyzed. Get behind me. The whispers crawled into her ears, a chorus of torment. Join us. Laura, we want you to play. With trembling fingers, she grabbed a dusty lamp off the shelf, the light flickering weakly. It was too dim against the swirling shadows, but it felt like a last defense, a flicker of hope in the stifling gloom. Suddenly, the attic creaked, breathily alive beneath her feet. Mommy! Mommy! Her son was shaking, tears spilling down his cheeks as he edged closer to the light. She could see the growing darkness pull at his shadow, streaking it thin and fragile. Laura's mind raced. This was no longer just about surviving. It was about saving them. But how? Stay together, she barked, forcing courage into her voice. If we stand strong, we can fight this. The walls felt like they were closing in, cold, clammy dread enveloping her. With a rush, the chant grew louder, blending into a haunting melody. Play with us, Laura, forever. Each syllable stung, as if spoken from the depths of a bottomless pit. She had heard those voices before in fractured dreams, glimpses of children laughing and then spiraling into screams. I won't let you take them, Laura yelled, her voice vibrating with an undeniable fury. She turned the lamp toward the door, illuminating the shadows that clawed at the edges. It glowed with an intensity that felt painfully insufficient against the night. Her daughter's eyes widened, the traces of her own presence flickering for a moment in that piercing light. I'm scared, Mommy, me too, baby. But we have to believe. You can fight this. You can fight it. She stepped forward, the lamp shaking in her grasp, and then she saw it a flicker in the corner. Not of light but an elongation of the darkness. A figure forming, its grotesque shape shifting as it loomed. Stay behind me. The command rumbled from her lips as she stepped forward, confronting the entity. The whispers morphed into shrieks, the cacophony of those lost souls united in anguish. Laura, why did you leave us? Come play. Laura lunged, channeling every instinct that screamed for survival. She slammed the lamp down, forcing it to project brighter. A shockwave of luminescence cascaded against the walls, illuminating horrors she had buried deep. Caught in the light were faces she knew yet didn't recognize. Twisted remnants of lives once lived, eyes hollow and mouths open in silent agony. Mommy! Her children cried, the shadows darting, trying to snatch their warmth. Help me! We have to break the curse! She cried, desperation clawing at her throat. Whatever it takes. The energy surged, and she felt her heart thud in rhythm with the pulse of the darkness. But the shadows were relentless, angry at being exposed. They latched onto her, icy claws digging into her skin, ripping at her sanity. Let go. She screamed, trying to pull free. The light flickered. Play with us, the voices hissed, voices that echoed from her past. And for a moment, doubt crawled into her heart. Could she really let go of those she loved? Just then, she heard a whisper, a smothered voice emerging from the storm. Find the truth. The realization hit her like a blow. There was no running from the truth, only through it. Hold on, she yelled, pulling her children against her with fierce determination. We're getting out of here. With that, she surged toward the attic door, darkness snapping at their heels, and the chaos clawed at her legs. What truth awaited them outside? Could they confront what had been awakened, or would it consume them entirely? As the door creaked open under her force, the world beyond writhed and pulsed with danger, waiting for their decision, waiting for their next move. The door swung open, a wide maw swallowing light and breathing dread. Outside, the world was distorted, colors shifting in sickening hues. Shadows writhed in the corners of her vision, taunting, whispering incantations that made her stomach churn. Mommy, I don't want to go. Her daughter's voice trembled, a fragile thread amid the chaos. Laura's heart raced, pounding behind her rib cage like a trapped bird. Stay close, she urged, gripping her children's hands tightly. She stepped into that nightmarish landscape, the air thick with unease. The outside was wrong. Trees loomed too large, their twisted branches stretching out like skeletal fingers. The wind howled, carrying ghostly echoes of laughter mixed with cries, the vicious mockery of something that should not exist. We have to find a way to end this, she whispered, every instinct screaming to retreat. The ground felt alive beneath her feet, almost pulsing with an unseen heartbeat. Each step was a challenge against the insatiable pull of darkness at their heels, clawing and gnawing as they ventured further. Strange shapes danced just outside the periphery of her vision. Little figures darted among the trees, flickering like fireflies, yet radiating an ominous essence. Their eyes shone too bright, too knowing. Look, Mommy, there are kids, her son shouted, pointing toward the figures. Laura's breath caught an instinctual dread. No, those aren't kids. Get back, she shouted, pulling her children toward her. The figures giggled, cruel and mocking, a chorus of youthful laughter that twisted with malice. Why don't you come and play? A high-pitched voice teased, the invitation coated in venom. The shadows thickened, curling around her like smoke that clawed at her ankles. Laura gritted her teeth and forged ahead, ignoring the guttural whispering that entwined around them like a serpent as they hurried past the darkness. Laura suddenly spotted a flicker of light in the distance, beyond the gnarly trees. Hope sparked deep inside her. We can reach that, she urged, her voice fiercer than she felt. But then the ground shifted. It opened, a gaping hole forming beneath her feet. She stumbled, instinctively tightening her grip on her children. Hold on. The shadows seized the moment, thrashing wildly as if tasting victory. She felt them scrape against her skin, cold and insidious. The dark figures emerged again, their forms twisting and bending unnaturally. Don't leave us, Laura, they chimed, and the atmosphere turned heavy, pressing down with despair. Join us forever, no. I want tea. She roared back, the defiance igniting some long-buried fury within. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was also about reclaiming her life, her family. The trembling light ahead twinkled more insistently, calling her. Come on. We're almost there, she shouted, her voice a piercing cry against the dark. They dashed forward, adrenaline surging, the cries behind them turning desperate. But as they ran, a culmination of shadows rushed forward, a black wave slamming into her back, hurling her down. Laura crashed to the ground, the wind knocked out of her lungs. Mommy! Her children screamed, their voices reaching heights of terror that raised the hairs on her neck. Desperation bloomed as the whispers grew louder, wrapping around her heart like a noose. You can't deny us, Laura, you can't escape. With a primal scream, she forced herself upright, the world blurring into a haze of shadows and light. Just before everything collapsed into chaos, she grabbed her children, pulling them into a tight embrace. Watch out, she shouted, her instincts firing as she yanked them to the side. And then, an explosion of light erupted from her grasp. The lamp, still burning with a flicker of hope, was now a raging inferno. In the blinding radiance, the dark figures shrieked, recoiling as the shadows parted momentarily. Run! Laura shouted, propelled by the surge of sudden clarity. They dashed toward the illuminated freedom, the darkness clawing at their heels, desperate not to let them go. But as they neared the edge of light, another voice whispered from within the chaos, deep and resonant, cracking through the laughter. You can't take them from me. A fear, sharp and cold, pierced Laura's heart as she realized what had woken. Mommy, I can't feel them, her daughter cried, panic infecting the air. What would they find at the light's boundary? Would they be truly free? Or was this only another trick? With every ounce of strength left, Laura thrust them toward the light, praying it would guide them to salvation or consume them whole. What awaited them on the other side? What price would they have to pay to escape the darkness? They surged forward, hearts pounding like war drums, but the light flickered. Shadows clawed at the edges of their sanctuary, inching closer to the warmth that offered them hope. Laura could feel her children trembling beside her, their small bodies vibrating with anxiety. Mommy, will we be okay? Her son's voice wavered, glancing back at the darkness that threatened to engulf them. Just hold my hand. We're almost there, she urged, though doubt gnawed at her, an insidious worm chewing through her resolve. The warmth from the light felt electric, yet so achingly far away. The ground beneath them shook again, a violent tremor that sent waves of panic crashing through her. Go, 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 she shouted, the words tearing from her throat. Beneath them, the earth rippled like something alive, desperate to pull them back, to claim them as its own. Then came a high-pitched, rattling laugh echoing through the trees. You can't have them, Laura. You're ours now. The sinister laughter sliced through the air and froze her blood. Her mind rebelled against the truth. They were not just fleeing the darkness, they were being hunted. Laura could feel it, the weight of eyes watching them, hunger spreading through the shrouded forest. Faster, she gasped, eyes locked on the flickering glow. Each step felt like wading through molasses. The shadows latched onto her legs, yanking her down to their level. Release her, a deep voice thundered from the depths, mingling with the sinister whispers. Mommy, her daughter shrieked. Time teetered, stretched thin like a spider's web caught in a gust. With every ounce of her being, Laura shoved aside her fear. She could not let them be pulled into the abyss. Trust me, we keep going. Her voice forged new strength, pushing them forward like a spear through the dark. But suddenly, the ground beneath her cracked like an eggshell. It splintered wide, revealing a swirling pit of darkness that beckoned them closer. Laura stumbled, but her grip on her children tightened. Please, not now. She felt sweat bead on her brow, a slick reminder of the terror lurking close behind them. The shadows swirled above, and the laughter intensified, wrapping around them like a noose. You'll never leave us, Laura. You all belong to this realm now. Run! She screamed, the raw urgency shredding her voice. As they lunged toward the light, she couldn't shake the terrible realization. The collapsing ground was alive with malevolence, and the darkness was closing in like a hungry beast. With one final push, they burst free from the tendrils of shadow. The blinding light engulfed them, illuminating their faces with radiant warmth. But in that moment of hope, a pulse of ice cascaded down Laura's spine as the laughter turned into howls. What did you bring with you? The voice rumbled ominously, and for the first time, she caught sight of it. A figure standing at the edge of light, face obscured, yet eyes glowed empty, soulless orbs that seemed to draw in the brightness around them. Mommy, they're there behind us, her son whimpered. Breath hitching in her throat, she instinctively shielded her children, thrusting them forward. But the figure stepped closer. An icy grip clutched Laura's heart. She could feel it, the weight of their presence, pooling around her, suffocating. Everything has a price, Laura, it hissed, a smile slithering across its twisted lips. You will pay. She stood frozen, heart racing. Was freedom just a mirage? How much would she sacrifice? What price would be extracted for their escape? The shadows pulsed and writhed, looming just out of sight, hungry for what she could never give up. Let us go, Laura shouted, panic surging harder now than ever. She ran, pulling her children along, but the confusion churned her stomach. Once they were through the threshold of light, what awaited them? Safety or a deeper descent into madness? The ground trembled again, whispering dark promises of the dangers still to come. Would the light shield them from the evil waiting in the shadows? Or had they simply walked into another trap? Mommy, what if we can? To go back? Her daughter asked, the innocence in her voice sparking a glimmer of dread. Laura bit back fear. We have to keep moving. But the echoes of that dark laugh followed them, haunting, relentless. What kind of horror had they unleashed? With every step, urgency clawed at her. As more shadows lunged for them, she screamed into the void, what will it take to save my family? But the only response was the chilling howl reverberating through the darkness. As they raced into the unknown, the ultimate sacrifice lingered in the air, waiting to be claimed. The ground settled beneath them, but the atmosphere felt heavy, oppressive, almost electric. Laura skidded to a halt, her heart hammering as she scanned their surroundings, trying to catch her breath. The forest had transformed. The trees towered like giants, their branches twisting into gnarled fingers that seemed to reach down towards them, eager for their submission. We're safe now, right? Her son's eyes were wide, flickering between hope and fear, but Laura's gut churned with dread. Stay close. Don't let go of my hand. They moved forward slowly, the light flickering like a heartbeat, casting strange shadows that warped into grotesque forms. Every sound, from the rustle of leaves to the distant snapping of twigs, sent shivers racing down her spine. It felt like the woods themselves were alive, watching, waiting. Mommy, her daughter whispered, clutching tightly to her leg. What does it want from us? I don't know, sweetie, Laura murmured, a knot twisted in her throat. There were too many unanswered questions. What price would be demanded for their escape? Were they to pay with fear, pain, or something worse? As if summoned by her thoughts, the laughter returned, a discordant melody that wrapped around them, squeezing tighter and tighter. You can't escape your fate, Laura. You brought them right to us. Laura turned, frantic and desperate. Who are you? What do you want? The trees creaked and moaned, the very air thickening. She could feel the presence of something terrible lurking just out of sight, waiting for its moment to strike. All your sacrifices, they bind you to this place. To us, it continued, its voice a blend of malice and twisted joy. A heavy silence enveloped them. Laura's breath came in shards, panic clawing at her chest. She clutched her children, feeling their bodies tremble against her. We have to get out of here, They began to move again, each step uncertain. The ground felt fluid, as if it might swallow them whole. Just ahead, a darker patch caught her eye, recesses swirling with a familiar malevolence. Laura glanced back, fear prickling her skin. The figure hovered at the edge of the light, its shape slightly shifting, almost like smoke. As she inched closer, she saw remnants of familiar faces interspersed within its form, people she had loved and lost, consumed by this darkness. "No, no," she gasped. Frantically, she stumbled back, dragging her children with her as echoes of their laughter mixed with the whispers of the shadows. "Mommy," her daughter cried. "I want to go home. We will. I promise." But was it a promise she could keep? The darkness loomed larger, edging closer, ready to claim them. Then the sky darkened as thick clouds rolled in, blocking the distant light that had seemed like salvation. Thunder rumbled ominously. The shadows began to pulse, and suddenly the path forked into two, a dark, tangled route to the left and the tremulous light glowing faintly to the right. Which was the way to freedom? Which was the way to despair? "Choose," the figure snarled, advancing slowly, its form wild and shifting. "Choose quickly, or lose everything." Laura felt paralyzed, fear gnawing at her core. The sounds of the forest transformed into a cacophony, a blend of screams, whispers, and laughter. "Which way?" she pleaded with her children. "But what if we're too late?" Her son trembled, backing up against a tree, as if it might shelter him from the coming storm. "Mommy, I can't." His wide eyes brimmed with tears, and the shadows danced like spirits eager to drag him away. "Please, you have to help me," she urged, the weight of their decisions pressing down like a suffocating cloak. Time was slipping away, and clarity dwindled. With the thunder above their heads and shadows creeping on all sides, what choice could they make? As the figure reached a hand toward them, Laura realized that the light was fading, and with it, hope. The question loomed larger, darker than the gathering storm. Would their choice lead to redemption, or into the depths of unfathomable horror? And as a shudder ripped through the ground, she gasped, "What if we can't trust ourselves?" The darkness surged, and the figure grinned wider than ever, a harbinger of despair. The choice loomed ahead, and time was running out. "Now!" Laura screamed, pulling her children toward the flickering light. They stumbled, her son's foot snagging on a root, sending him crashing to the ground. "Get up! Hurry!" She felt the shadows closing in, the dark figure snickering in delight as their fear fed its form. "Mommy, I can't," he wailed, panic spilling over, his voice thick with despair. "Please." Laura pulled with all her strength, but there was a weight holding him down, a grip that felt too real. The disjointed laughter of the woods echoed her son's cries, twisting the air around them. "Choose the light," she shouted, dragging him towards it. Just as she thought he'd break free, the shadows coiled tighter, whispering vile secrets that promised comfort and surrender. With one final surge, she yanked him up, adrenaline flooding her veins. They sprinted forward, her daughter's small hand clutched in her own. But the light pulsed erratically, as if it was taunting them, flickering with an unbearable urgency. "Don't look back," Laura breathed, trying to drown the rising fear in her chest. "We have to trust our choice," but a cold, clammy breeze swirled around them, carrying with it distant echoes of family names, long lost. "Mommy!" her daughter shrieked, eyes wide with terror. "I saw them in the dark." Coming to a sudden halt, Laura's heart raced in a frantic rhythm. She glanced behind her and just caught a glimpse of the figure morphing back into the familiar faces of her past, twisting, writhing, begging. "Mommy, don't leave them," her son cried, his voice a desperate plea. "No," she cried out, the panic threatening to swallow her whole. "We can't stay here. It will take us next." The trees seemed to thrum with a chilling laughter, the branches reaching out like bony fingers. "You will always belong to us, Laura. You cannot run from your own." Clenching her fists, she pressed onward, the light pulling at her like a lifeline. Each step felt like a betrayal and a desperate grasp at hope. They reached the edge of the glowing path, and Laura hesitated. Could she really take her children into the unknown? Go, her daughter urged. We can't listen. As if sensing their wavering resolve, the figure lunged. Choice taken from you is the sweetest form of abandon. It growled, elongating its dark limbs, reaching for their souls. Laura tensed, adrenaline rushing through her as she stepped into the light. Instantly, a searing heat enveloped them, shattering the shadows like glass. But the laughter crescendoed, burst from the trees, turning into an agonizing wail that rattled every bone in her body. Mommy, I'm scared, her son shrieked, squeezing her hand tighter. We have to keep moving, she urged, propelling her children forward, but the ground shuddered beneath them. The light began to pulse, waning and flickering like a candle in the wind. And just ahead, the path transformed into a dark, swirling vortex, pulling at their very essence. With every ounce of strength, she shouted, "Stand with me." Suddenly, the vortex expanded, drawing them towards it. Shadows grasped at her ankles, snaring her like quicksand. Terrified faces populated the darkness, each pleading for escape while a cacophony of twisted voices echoed in her ears. The darkness threatened to engulf them entirely, and in that moment of sheer terror, she heard the whispers of lost souls. Leave them, let them go find peace, Mommy. No. Her daughter's terrified cries echoed against her chest, battling against the chilling voices. Feeling the weight of despair, Laura realized they might be lost forever. An overwhelming urge to pull back, to succumb to the shadows, clawed at her. But was surrender an option? As the shadows closed in, feral hands reaching for them, Laura's heart beat a desperate rhythm in her chest. Trust our choice, no matter the cost, she screamed, lunging forward into the swirling maelstrom. The ground trembled violently. As the darkness erupted into chaos around them, the final choice drifted away like embers in the wind. Will they be swallowed? Or is a new path waiting just out of sight? In that crucial moment, the world twisted, and time stood still. Was freedom on the other side or something far worse? The world collapsed around them, blending in a vortex of shadows and light. Laura closed her eyes tight against the chaos. The shrieking wails of those lost echoed fiercely, crashing against her like waves. She felt her children's grip, warm and frantic, anchoring her, pulling her upward. The darkness swirled violently, yet something began to break through, a perspective-shifting, weightless brightness flooding in. With a sudden lurch, they were thrust into a cold reality outside the tangled realm they'd been fighting. As Laura opened her eyes, the light transformed into a stark, blinding glow. The gleam illuminated a barren, desolate landscape, an unsettling silence overwhelming them. Stripped of the shadows, the stillness felt more ominous than the howling chaos they had just escaped. Where are we? Her son whispered, his voice tremulous. Laura surveyed their surroundings, breath hitching involuntarily. They stood on cracked earth, fissures spidering out like gnarled fingers. The sky above was a sickly gray, swirling ominously, as if preparing to unleash a storm. We made it out, she finally breathed, though the words felt hollow. Yet that moment of relief was short-lived. Her daughter's eyes went wide, staring past her with palpable terror. Mommy, they're coming, she whispered. Ahead, shadowy figures formed, slowly creeping towards them in a fixed, deliberate pace. The faces she thought she had escaped were now materializing once again, twisted in anguish, eyes hollow and empty. Join us, Laura, called one, its voice like nails scraping on stone. You can't run forever. They'll haunt you. The realization crashed over her. They weren't safe. The shadows didn't just follow, they hunted. Desperation kicked in, and she grabbed her children's hands tight, adrenaline fueling her fear. Run. We have to move, she shouted, heart pounding in her chest. They began to sprint across the barren landscape, the shadows pursuing, drifting like smoke, snatching at the heels of their fleeing feet. Faster! Don't look back, Laura urged, the wind biting against her skin, chilling her to the bone. Each glance at the dark figures showed their contorted faces etched with desperation. Sobs escaped their lips, blending the eerie call of Laura with the clamor of lost souls, endlessly echoing. "Mommy, I can't." Her son choked, stumbling as fatigue set in. Laura scooped him up, hoisting him onto her side, but the effort strained her too. Her daughter, hushed in fear, fumbled next to her, fading like a whisper into the desolation. Just ahead, a jagged cliff loomed where the ground unraveled, yawning like a gaping maw. We can't go back," her daughter pleaded, trying to drag them away from the edge, but the thrumming terror drew closer. "No choice," Laura yelled, moving toward the cliff's edge, her heart pounding like a drum. Beyond it all, darkness gaped like an abyss, a hollow echo of menace. Suddenly, unnatural laughter broke through the air, a cacophony fueled by malice and longing. The shadows emphasized the futility of their flight. "You can't escape the chains of fate," they taunted, eyes flaring bright in the dusk. "Mom, what do we do?" her son whimpered, pressing his head against her shoulder. "Hold on tight," Laura screamed, her breath coming in rapid gasps. She had to choose: jump into the dark and hope for safety down below, or face the shadows that had etched despair into their souls. As they reached the edge, the ground trembled, and for a split second, everything froze. Time hung heavy with suffocating dread, waiting for the moment of truth. Then it came crashing in. "The darkness wants you forever," echoed around them. With a heart full of desperation, Laura took a deep breath, whispering a prayer, and leaped into the unknown. What awaited below? A twisted fate, or salvation from the horror chasing them? Laura felt herself plunging into the abyss, the world blurring around her. Her heart raced as panic clawed at her insides. She clutched her children tightly, whispering words of comfort as they descended into the void. Their faces were pale with fear, but she focused on the warmth of their small hands in hers. Time stretched in that terrifying silence. Then suddenly a jarring impact. The ground rose to meet them, but instead of solid earth, they were engulfed in a prickly sensation, like 1,000 tiny needles stinging her skin. When Laura opened her eyes, she barely registered they lay in a heap on a cool, soft surface grass. Maybe? A deep, chilling silence enveloped them like a thick blanket. The shadows still clawed at her, lingering close, but for a moment, they paused. "Are we safe?" her son whispered, his voice wavering. "No," Laura gasped, pushing her hair back, trying to catch her breath. She scanned their surroundings. The landscape was lush, bathed in an eerie twilight glow that seemed to pulsate with life. But something felt off. The trees stretched too high, their twisted branches wound together like skeletal fingers. Though the haunting laughter faded, the shadows still held a presence creeping along the edges of her vision, waiting. "We need to keep moving," she insisted, forcing herself to her feet, heart pounding against her ribcage. As they stepped forward, the shadows slithered into focus. Forms darted around the trees, faces flickering in and out of existence. Laughter, low and sinister, began to echo through the clearing. Children's voices, mocking, haunted the very sound of their agony. "Mommy!" her daughter screamed, her face twisted in terror, eyes darting toward the dark figures drawing closer. "We can't look back. Trust me," Laura shouted, moving forward with urgency. "We're not lost yet." But doubt gnawed at her as the figures advanced. Each step felt heavier, like they were wading through thick mud, shadows tugging at their clothes, trying to drag them back. Then Laura caught sight of a narrow path leading downwards, visible against the oppressive twilight. "There," she cried. "We have to reach that path." With renewed determination, she bolted toward it, pulling her children along as the shadows lunged behind them. "Don't look back," she warned, adrenaline fueling her stride. Just before they reached the safety of the path, a visceral roar reverberated through the air. It was a sound that made Laura's skin crawl, a reminder of the horrors they faced. Her heart sank as she spotted the dark figure at the forefront, its face morphed into every lost child she had seen in her nightmarish visions, distorted and twisted, eyes glimmering with insatiable hunger. But there was a flicker of something else: recognition. "Mommy," her daughter gasped, eyes widening, pointing towards the figure. "It looks like no. Don't listen," Laura shouted, pulling them further, but the voices coiled around them, drawing her in. "Laura, come back, stay with us," she heard the words resonate deep within her gut. Memories of childhood friends flashed through her mind, faces she thought she had left behind blending into the horror. "They're lost, just like us," she realized with sudden clarity at that moment. She understood the shadows were feeding on fear, despair, and the bonds of love. They weren't just chasing them. They were using confusion, trying to grab at the remnants of her past. With fierce resolve, Laura turned to her children. "Listen carefully. We're stronger together. Come on." They raced down the path, shadows clawing at their heels. But Laura felt something shifting within her, a surge of strength igniting like fire. A primal urge to protect her children pushed her forward. She could feel the shadows thrashing around them, desperately trying to hold them back. "Run. You can't let them take you," she urged, her voice laced with determination as they barreled forward. The shadows hit a threshold. Something tightened around their legs, but now she felt a barrier forming. The whispers turned into screams of frustration, the echoes drowning. "Out there, please. Don't stop. Just keep running." With every step, the darkness ignited a surge of energy in Laura. She could sense the barrier growing stronger. Hope ignited inside her, a burning torch against the abyss. Ahead, the path opened into a luminous clearing, a swath of light so bright it pierced through the twilight, grasping at them. The laughter faded into the background, replaced by an acute awareness of freedom just within reach. "Mommy," her son cried, growing tired, struggling a few steps behind. Laura took a deep breath, adrenaline coursing through her. She forced a smile, determination unyielding. "Almost there. Just a little more." Together, they stumbled into the light. Every ounce of darkness screamed as they crossed the threshold, the oppressive shadows retreating, clawing at the air as they lost their grip. The light enveloped them, warm and blinding, a whirlwind swirling through their bodies. Just as despair loomed behind, they felt the world shift once again, reality spinning, the shadows dissipating like smoke, and in that moment, they landed not just in a new place, but a new understanding. Light conquers darkness when hope dares to ignite. They emerged on the other side, breathless and grasping at one another. A vast expanse of grassy meadows stretching out before them under a brilliant blue sky. The dread began to fade, replaced by the relief of life returning, warmth blooming in their hearts. "We did it," her daughter cheered, laughter spilling forth like music, sunlight kissing their cheeks. Her son followed suit, laughter transforming the heaviness of despair to lightness. Yes, they had escaped. But as the shadows faded away, Laura felt a ripple beneath her skin, a lingering awareness that darkness would always be there, lurking just beyond the light. Together, they marched forward, renewed by love, determined to forge their own path away from the lurking shadows. As she surveyed the horizon, a sense of resolve bloomed within her, a vow echoing in her heart. They would never forget those lost, nor the power of love that helped them escape. "Let us go home," she whispered, feeling the flickers of hope dance in her chest, leading the way into a brighter future together. You need to subscribe now so you never miss the next exclusive story that could haunt you. Smash that like button now if this thrill got your heart racing. It really helps feed the algorithm. Flood the comments below with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. I want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this wild ride.